let us all do we can to build a better future.
There's no denying that right now there's a growing escalation that's happening between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine, but all the while everyone has been focusing on a potential conflict that could destroy the human species if people really get out of hand, there's some dangers here happening here at home, and that is the ever-rising cost of inflation. This is happening under the Biden-Harris administration. We got two articles, one from Common Dreams, the other one from RT America. Shh, don't tell Rachel Maddow or TYT. They might go ahead and go crazy. But Biden's real challenge is not Russia or China, but poverty in America. We've talked about this, and if you haven't seen Lainey Peterson's show on Thursday, Civically Minded, I suggest all of you tune in to check that out, because we're talking about a lot of consumer information and domestic policy issues that all of you need to be aware about. So mainstream U.S. media continues to celebrate the supposed strengths of the U.S. economy almost daily. Headlines speak of hopeful numbers, sustainable growth, positive trends, and constant gains. The reality on the ground, however, tells of something entirely different, which raises the questions: are Americans being lied to, and for what purpose? The U.S. economy grew 1.7% in the fourth quarter, capping a strong year, the New York Times reported. The U.S. economy grew 5.7% in 2021, fastest full-year clip. The Washington Post added, Reuters, Voice of America, the Financial Times, CNN, Market Watch, and many others all concurred. But if that is the case, why then is U.S. President Joe 30330 approval rating at an all-time low? And why are many Americans literally going hungry? I can also add on to there, why are Americans being kicked out of their homes and apartments? Why are Americans still struggling with student debt, medical debt? How come Americans are still trying to work 2 or 3 jobs and it's still not enough? Many Americans are just straight up quitting the rat race that we are living in this neoliberal nightmare that our politicians have created for us. In a national opinion poll conducted by Reuters and published on February 3rd, only 41% of U.S. adults approved of Biden's performance in office. A whopping 56% disapproved. The numbers were not a complete shock, as the downward trajectory of the Biden presidency has been in effect soon after he moved to the White House over a year ago. The truth is, Biden was not the Democrats' top choice nominee. Oh, really, you think? For president, judging by various opinion polls and the early results of the Democratic primaries in 2020, it was Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry. Sorry, I stuttered there, Daniel. Yeah. That's a real problem. Hang on, I'm sorry. I stuttered there. It was Bernie Sanders who represented the Democratic hope for real, substantive change. You know what's interesting about today? Today was the day when Bernie Sanders secured Nevada 2 years ago. You know, there was a lot of hope.
Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
Also, but let's
Thanks, Obama.
Like Bernie would. It's complicated. We're not happy, but it could have been something slightly different. It could have been this unhappy, but with healthcare, maybe.
Party politics, liberal media insistence that Sanders was not electable, and fear-mongering regarding a second Trump term in office pushed Biden through the ranks of nominees to be presented as America's only hope for salvation, because he was going to return the soul back to the country. Biden was going to do that. But let's look at Biden's first year in office. The kids are still in cages. Oh no, but those cages were built during the Obama-Biden administration. Oh, gee, So that means the Jagoff, who was part of the Obama administration, who was his VP, is now president and still has those cages and still implementing a lot of Trump's border policies as well. Turns out also, again, Americans are being evicted from their homes and apartments. Americans are struggling economically. Americans are struggling with student debt. We're doing regime change wars all the time. Nothing has fundamentally changed. Wall Street executives, big banks, and corporations are still running this country of ours. That's a real fact. And let's face it, the progressives, Bernie Sanders, all just said, no, we'll just push him to the left. We're going to use our power, and they never did. Is it to no one's surprise that nothing has changed? And that whole and the big thing is, even though you have everyone on the liberal left who are saying, oh, we defeated Trump, he's going to run again in 2024. So you really didn't do anything to change anything. And I want to pull up this article now from RT America, because this is what's going to hurt the Democratic Party. Now, I know everyone has, those who've been critical of hard lens media, saying, well, how come you're not being mean to the Republicans? How come you're not calling out the Republicans for how they've been obstructive towards democracy and how they are just corrupt? Well, we know that. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit. At this point, it's not saying we don't care about the GOP. We know what to expect. They're never going to fight for progressive
I
values.
would even say this, that if we were in a situation where all of America viewed the parties the same way we would, we really wouldn't even have to talk about the Democrats. The whole reason we have to talk about the Democrats is that not everyone, but a reasonable side of America thinks that if they're with the Democrats, they're good people doing good things and they're helping. And if it only wasn't for the Republicans, everyone already know, like everyone, even Republicans are like, yeah, they kind of get it because it's pretty obvious. Again, it's dealing with the wolf or the fox. And the fox has convinced so many people that they are not a threat to your children just because they're not a wolf. And we need to keep reminding people that foxes and wolves will still eat your kid.
Yeah. So let's talk about this article here from RT America. Again, don't tell TYT, they might spaz out. Rents in the largest 50 cities of the United States have risen an average of 20% over the last year, according to a recent study conducted by apartment finding site Zumper. Another recent study by Realtor.com appeared to confirm those numbers. Median rents on apartments with two or fewer bedrooms spiked 19.3% from December of 2020 to 2021.
And that's double the inflation change.
A number of American cities even exceeded that rate, with rents in Miami reportedly skyrocketing to 49.8% since last year, according to Realtor.com figures. Meanwhile, Zumper's analysis showed that Boston nearly overtook historically pricey San Francisco to become the country's second most expensive rental market, with average prices rising 27%, while the California city itself barely budged north of 6.3%.
I love how they're like, barely budged at all, barely moved. 1/20th for every $20 you spend, it's now $1 more.
The priciest city, however, remains New York, where rents have surged 22.8% year on year. And look, let's face it, folks. Let's be real here about Chicago. We got the same problems here too in our city. And you know, the beating heart of a city isn't the rich people that live in it. It is the generations of families that have lived here and built this city up. But yet, the sad story here in Chicago, too, is that gentrification's running amok just like all over these other major metropolitan cities, and people are being pushed out, people are struggling, and the thing is, this is not how anyone should be forced to live. And this is happening under a Democratic administration, the Biden-Harris administration. It's not only food prices and gas prices going up, it's the cost of all forms of living in this country. What are these Democratic lawmakers thinking? They had a whole year to really help us out. There's no excuse. Biden could have got rid of student debt, made Medicare for All happen. Hell, he even could have legalized cannabis nationwide. This entire Democratic Party that said, oh, vote for us in 2020 and we'll make sure things will get better. We'll fight for you. We got none of it. The progressives bow down to the blue dog Democrats. The Republicans, of course, are going to do what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, the two-party system, do you want to know what they did? They decided to extend their benefits. They decided to extend their health care. So they got gold-plated health care, wonderful benefits, and they got great gigs and kickbacks from the lobby groups and donors that support them. I hope during this midterm enough Republican red voters and vote blue no matter who voters realize that you've been played for a very long time. We don't have a seat at the table. I want to continue on here. Labor Department statistics, which include existing rents as well as newly posted listings, show a decidedly similar increase of 0.5% between December and January. However, that increase represents the largest the department has measured in over 2 decades and expected to grow. Some economists are concerned because soaring rents contribute to the U.S. Consumer Price Index, which is used to calculate inflation, a marker which jumped 7.5% since January of 2021, the largest yearly gain in 40 years. Landlords can then feel compelled to raise the rent further with the dollar worth less, forcing the consumer price index and inflation to become higher still. The Federal Reserve recently announced its plans to raise interest rates multiple times this year in order to prevent further runaway inflation, after previously describing rising prices as transitory. It's just transitory, Daniel, so don't worry. Everyone calm down. It's just only transitory situation. However, the impact of that policy shift is not expected to be felt by ordinary Americans for months. Well, here's the thing. Americans are dealing with it. And under this administration, as we are in this midterm year, let's face it, the Democrats knowingly walked into the slaughter they're going to get. They're not going to fight for you. Don't fall for their promises. And to those progressives that are running in the Democratic Party, that are trying to bring in change, yeah, we hear what you're trying to do. But in all honesty, you got to show more because we're tired of words. And a lot of Americans are wondering, well, what lies next for them in an uncertain future? Daniel, what's the final word?
Yeah, this is all bad. So one thing to remember is that the most damaging thing to the U.S. is inflation, which is what we're dealing with right now, and we haven't even seen really the start of. I mean, the Fed has been pretending it's like not even a real thing that's happening, even though it's a thing that was always going to happen, that they've set up with giving away basically, you know, for a time, literally $100 billion a day. This is not a good position for people. Now, they said it's going to not get any actions they have aren't going to be felt for people for a month. I'm going to argue that they're not going to be felt by people. It's like you're drowning in 15 feet of water, and the Fed's like, don't worry, in a month, we'll pull 2 feet of that out. We know what's going to happen. We know what's always going to happen because it always happens this way. The U.S. is going to bail out businesses as needed, and you're going to be left out to starve. This is a lot of, again, this is why we focus on the economics, because it's the thing that kills the most people. It's the thing that affects the most lives. It's the thing that Democrats and Republicans in office both agree is fine if you're suffering, but not if someone else is. We are not going to, this is not good. We're not going to be in good times. We're not going to be in a good place. Everything is going to start feeding into each other as people raise rents. It's, again, they said it's going to keep inflation moving up and up and up and up and up. And then by the time that interest rates do get risen by the Fed, what's going to happen is the banks that receive it are then going to have to raise their borrowing rates. And then the banks that borrow from them and the mega corporations are going to have to increase their rates. And then the people that borrow from them, which are basically the people that are renting, are going to have to increase their rates. And the rate, the transitory rate increase is going to be bigger the further down the steps you are. So the Fed is going to try and do stuff because they only want to use supply side economics to try and affect this. So effectively, they're going to cause everything to get far more expensive and increase inflation so that eventually inflation can be decreased. Now, you know what I also feel bad for? Can you imagine you're like that mom and pop business that just survived the pandemic and you're like, it was terrible. We had to take out all this debt.
Yeah.
We had to sell our house. We're now living in the store we work in, but the pandemic, it's winding down. Oh, wait, there's inflation? Everything's going to get worse.
At our old studio, you know, we were surrounded by a lot of small businesses. You know, there were 2 restaurants that we really liked going to. There was even a small bar that we liked going to as well. And they were struggling too. And I only can imagine what they're going through right now. And the thing is, it's really hard to predict how many people are going to be hurt by the carelessness of the Democratic Party during the 12 months that they could have used in 2021. There's no excuse. There's no excuse at all. But Biden and Harris, this is your responsibility, and Americans are going to be suffering under your watch.
And then on top of this, the Democrats, as always, they're going to say, we tried to do something. The Republicans stopped us. The Republicans are going to go, look how weak those people are, blaming us. Then the Republicans are going to get elected back in because the owls, as always, are going to flip from one side to another. And then Republicans take over. There's going to be higher austerity. And then everyone's going to act like, you know, something is extra wrong because Republicans are in office, and somehow things that are when Republicans are in office are worse than Democrats.
Yeah.
And then everyone's going to be partisan, and we're in a 2-year time going to be exactly in the spot we're at now, except, of course, for the lives of regular Americans, we're going to be in worse situation.
This midterm and 2024 will be very interesting years, and Heartlands Media will cover it. But no matter what, the only way we're going to get out of this is by working together. Don't rely on these politicians to help you out, because they're not going to help you. No matter what they say, they don't like you, and they don't think about you.